All right, if everyone could settle in, we'll get started. We're just a minute or two late. We're going to adopt rules today. We have 13. The chair's going to entertain a motion to add a 14th rule and fine members for being late to the committee meeting. But I'll leave that to the members to decide. No, I'm joking, but I do hope we'll get in, get settled, and get with our program. We do have to give up the room a bit earlier. I'm sure I had an agenda in here. So there it is. So again, I want to call this first meeting of the 23-24 legislative session of the higher education meeting to order and welcome everyone. Just as a purpose of introduction, my name is Chuck Martin. I represent the 49th up in Alpharetta and Roswell and Milton, North Fulton County. I want to welcome some of our new members today, if I can. One of our new members is our new vice chair, Representative Mitchell Scoggins from the 14th District, Bartow and Floyd County, to the right. Bartow and Cherokee, and now there were new maps, I'm told. This is off your bio. You have to fix that, Vice Chairman. Another new member, I don't think he has yet joined us, but Carter Barrett from House District 24 will be the secretary of the committee this year, and I'm not going to go into counties and for fear of missing that. A third new member, Amani Barnes, House District 86. I don't believe that. Are you going to please join us? All right. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to start. We're going to start the hazing of the Representative Barnes immediately forthwith. We'll put Representative Holland in charge of that for this for appropriately doing that. Now, welcome. And I have a lifelong resident of DeKalb County. Did I get that county right? I messed out with our vice. Yeah. So welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you join us. Lydia Glaze is from House District 67. Will be joining the committee. I believe she's had some things going on at home and is not here this week. So we'll look for her last week. And last but certainly not least, from House District 114, Tim Fleming is joining us to my right. So we welcome you all to our committee. And I'm going to hustle through this a bit because we had our time pinched from 2 hours down to 1 hour today. And the business we need to do before we get to our presenters is the House rules for the 2023-2024 session. These are a little bit different from last year, but let me explain why. These are the rules that were suggested from the Speaker's office verbatim. They have not changed at all, and except with the chair's suggestion that was completely in jest of adding a tardiness rule number 14, which we'll belay at this point. I would ask you to look through those, and while you take a minute to do so, we're silent in these rules about decorum. We'll follow the rules of the House and decorum. The one thing I want to say here, and the chair will try to enforce this, well, he will not try, the chair will enforce this equally to all people, is usually when the news media comes in here and films, they'll set up over here out of the way so they can see people. First Amendment rights, this is a public meeting, people can film it. I'm going to say today, and I'm going to ask it in front of every meeting, that when you want to film with a camera, everybody's got them now, that's fine. You're welcome to do that. But the chair is not going to allow people to intimidate speakers. I'm not saying that anybody would do that. I just want to go on the record with that. We have many people that come to speak before this committee that aren't professionals at doing that. Some of you work for a department, or you do it as a business. We have students, we have parents that come to speak before this committee. It's a chilling experience. You haven't done it before. So what I'm going to ask, if you're going to do that filming, do it from your seat, or do it from over here where I'm going to ask you and require you to do it from where the news media does it. I've just seen across the country the discourse get to a point where people try to lean in and put a camera in front of somebody's face, and I think I just think that's a chilling effect whether you're for or against, unless the speaker's okay with it. I mean, if it's a student's here and mom or dad wants to film them speaking before the committee, and it's a friendly post, they agree. But people come before the committee to speak, and we do not want to chill that effort. We want to welcome it. So I would just, that's not in the rules. I think that's just a part of meeting decorum that we want to keep that open. So I just verbalize that while the folks are reading through the rules. And with that, if I'd ask if there a motion to approve the rules. I have a motion and a second, and now I'll go. Is there just discussion on the rules? Does anybody have a question about the rules? We did go with a quorum of 13. That's larger than last year. We have a lot of people with a lot of things going on, so when we have bills, we need you to get here. The chair will always endeavor to get a full committee if we have a measure that's going to be up for discussion. Any further discussion on the rules? You have before you a motion to approve the rules, House Higher Education Committee rules for 2023-2024. It's been duly made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The rules are herein adopted and will be adhered to for our committee. We're going to go straight now down to our presenters this afternoon. And we're going to go a bit out of order. I've spoken with the presenters, and if he's ready, I'm going to call former governor of the great state of Georgia and our current chancellor, Chancellor Sonny Perdue, to give us some information about our university system.
Thank you,
Chancellor
Mr.
Perdue.
Chairman and members of the committee. I really appreciate your warning about those cameras. They've always intimidated me, so I'll be really careful about those. Thank you very much. See there already. But thank you so much.
Would you like me to have Representative Weedow or Chairman Weedow removed from the building? Please, Chancellor.
I want to just make a couple of notes before I start with the presentation. You may not know, on the Senate side, this was the only committee I ever chaired. It's my second term, and Governor Pierre Howard said, Sonny, I'd like to give you a chairmanship of a committee. Don't worry, it's not going to be a big one. What would you like? And I looked around and felt like higher education could have more impact on the state to come than anything else I saw. So I was honored to chair Senate Higher Education at that period of time. It kind of links in with my LinkedIn profile. When I got back from D.C., I said, born a dirt farmer, tried a couple other jobs, never could escape. And when I was honored to be selected as a chancellor, I thought the Board of Regents might want something a little more erudite than that. So I changed my profile to Chancellor of the University System of Georgia, possibly the most impactful job I've ever had. And that's why I want you all to know how I feel about this job. It's not a step down. It's an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of Georgians one by one as we go forward. And that's y'all's opportunity and challenge as well, as we make sure. I fully believe that as higher education in our state goes, both USG, TCSG, and others, our state will follow in a generation. So that's how I take this job, and we take it very seriously. I appreciate this. For some of you, it may be kind of a rerun. The chairman has asked me to kind of review some of the slides that I used in the budget presentation for the committees last week. It kind of dealt with some of the formula, but it just kind of gives you an overview of where we are from a higher education perspective. You're very much aware of the big ask that we have of the $105 million for electronic medical records at Augusta in our partnership with WellStar going forward. We're open to answer any questions about that. I'm not going to focus on that as much today as just generally higher education. We mentioned the fact, I think Commissioner Dozier and I both mentioned the fact that we're really dealing with formulas that are about 40 years old. I teased Gerald Green the other day. I said, when Gerald was here and put in the formula funding for QBE in 1984, then that's what we're still dealing with. And I'll show you a few things that have changed on campus since 1984 if you're not familiar with those. So I'm going to use my pen again. People seem to appreciate looking at the slide and being able to find out where I'm talking from. But anyway, this is what's driving us from our overall philosophy. We think we've got a good system. We think we don't talk about how good our system is here now comparatively nationally. You got two of our flagships in the top 16 universities there. Only 2 other states have 2 universities within that category. Both Georgia and Georgia Tech are there, give a great value. I'm kind of training our presidents and our faculty over this good, better, best. I'm about continuous improvement, so we say never let it rest till our good is better and our better is best. So that's our aspirations. You all give us the money to invest in higher education. Our responsibility is to commit to you accountability, transparency, and letting you know a return on that investment. I think when I stand here next year, if the regents allow me to stand here, we're going to have some dashboards where you'll be able to see on an ongoing basis, not just periodically, but an ongoing basis, dashboards that show us the metrics, the key production and performance indicators that you all will be able to see basis that. If we start rolling these out and you say, I'd like to see how many X of X we have, let us know that. We can build these things up and get you the information that you and your constituents want to hear. So we had a little visit with a town hall, kind of talked about some things that drive us. You're probably not used to the USG being all that fast in that way, but we want to be fast, we want to be focused, we want to be flexible, we want to be friendly, and I think education ought to be fun too. So those are the principles that guide us along as we move along going forward in that regard. So you all probably know I was governor during those great economic years of 2002 to 2011 with the twin recessions. And when we would recruit businesses of the state, it was about how much are you pay? How much are you going to give me? What are the incentives? You know what it's about today, right? It's about people. It's about talent flow. And that's the business that we're in. So that's why we're trying to grow our critical skills, our critical jobs in that regard, and make potentially, we'd love to talk to you all about some incentives about the high demand jobs, going forward. With Chairman and I visited personally about that. So that's kind of where we go. I want to direct your attention. You might want to take note of this, our Georgia Degrees Pay. It's a website that's available to parents and students and the public generally. It's full of information, and you see the URL there at the top, Georgia Degrees Pay, and you can scroll down and scream down into many different colleges, and this is just a screenshot, an example, but you can go to whatever college it is, how much it costs, how long it takes, and where they are. And it's really a wealth of information. We want the public, both students, parents, and the public, to have as much transparent information as they can for students to make good choices going forward for their higher education. You all know if you got juniors, seniors, sophomores in high school, that's a pretty anxious time this time of year, is that kids get pretty anxious about the competitiveness of higher education, where they're going to go. And this will help them make those choices as we go forward. One other thing, we're just rolling out to our campuses. Every student in the USG network will have access to this career resource planning. It's based on the platform of a company that began here in Atlanta from entrepreneurs called Stepping Blocks. It takes and scrubs jobs and alumni all over the country, and has a great personal profile that it starts with over here. You can see personality there. And it really, in 16 to 20 questions, it'll make you feel like somebody's been following you. So we don't have access. If you have an edu, usg.edu email, you can access that. They can do the campus at usg.edu, whatever campus they're on, can access this. We're just beginning to market this to our students. It is a powerful platform that shows them what the careers they're suited for based on their personality profile, and then what those jobs, what careers are there, what that income is all about, and helpful. So it's a powerful tool that we're trying to get more and more information into the hands of students and parents so they can make that first best determination there, so they don't get out here and have to go back and forth and change majors several times and those kind of things. We know that wastes money, both theirs and the state's money in that regard. So our goal is to try to get good career counseling to help them get to the right place the first time around. So the funding formula, you all know it was probably begun, it wasn't probably, it was begun in fiscal year 1984 after a big committee there looked at it for a couple of years. You all know it calculates a lump sum amount, which really is a appropriation model, not an allocation model. It helps to drive your decision. You all can, really go with it, or you can go above or below any year that you choose, and that's happened in the past. It's based on credit hour production, at what level, whether it's associate, 4-year, master's, or whatever. In that way, it's a 2-year lag, and so they'll be harvesting this year's budget. They'll be harvesting what happened a couple of years ago, and then with the enrollment decline, you know that the challenge is they'll be harvesting in a couple of years what's happening in enrollment decline this year. So with other inputs are M&O from a square footage perspective, health insurance costs, and those. So this funding is appropriated annually by you all with the governor's recommendation as well. As I said, it's appropriation, not allocation, and the Board of Regents, upon a variety of things, look at how those funds are allocated to institutions. Historically, I'll show you some numbers. It was originally considered a 75-25 mix, 75 state funding, 25 for tuition, and from the students and family that way. Currently, I'll show you the numbers here in a second on a chart. We're down to 57-43, and we'll show how some of that came about. So you can see up here in 2001, we were at the 75% model, and then we had the beginning recession in 2002, took us down here, and then as I told the Appropriations Committee, we hit a speed bump in here. I'm not sure who was governor during that period of time, but they didn't like education, I guess, in that period of time. That was the Great Recession, and we were all having to sacrifice a lot, but it took us down in this level. When the budget started growing, we've been relatively flat and increasing a little bit during this period of time. And then thankfully last year, with your appropriation for the special institution fee of $229, as well as a COLA of $207, you saw the uptick here. Obviously, our goal would be to get more back into where we were in times past regarding that. The interesting thing about this slide is that you'll understand the $229 special institution fee, that passed through directly to students. You all helped the affordability equation for students from over $300 to over $1,000 a year for some students. So this is a big deal for them. But you need to also understand operationally it didn't go to the universities. It didn't increase their budgets at all. In fact, this COLA that you were gracious enough last year and hopefully will again this year was needed from an employee perspective, but I was shocked to learn that we had 15,500 employees in the university system that were not covered under that COLA. So what happens when you have some people who are getting a raise and some don't? You can't stand the morale problem that you get when you don't do that. So our institutions made the decision to fund everyone with the COLA at the same level. So what does that mean? Last year, that amounted to $101 million that was not associated with the COLA coming out of the budgets of our university system. The $2,000 COLA we estimate this year will be $40 million coming out. So that's significant. And when you've got student enrollment decline, which is formula funding drop, then you all need to understand that the COLAs, while they're very grateful and we appreciate it for those who are covered, those who are not, our institutions are eating that out of their budgets in that way. So we just want to make sure you knew that. So has anything changed since 1984? I guess we all kind of understand that. Maybe some of us would like to go back to 1984 when I was a teenager, not really. But anyway, these are the things. You talk about safety and security. That's an expectation, rightfully so, from students and parents. Technology advances, internet speed, Wi-Fi. How about mental health issues? The time we're spending on counselors and those kind of things. These are the things that are eating into the operational education budgets of our institutions. So we got more first-gen students. They have more need for student support, mentoring, tutoring, counseling in that regard. Here's one if you got teenagers. How about expectations? Some of you may have gone to college when I did with the group showers down the hall. You know, you can't get kids to stay in a dorm like that any longer. They've got expectations of different facilities and dining, athletics, amenities, club activities. I went to one institution, they had over 400 social different clubs of affiliations there on campus. So a lot of that stuff going on. Our students of today view themselves as customers. Actually, it is a buyer's market, so they can choose to go a lot of places. They're courted, they're rushed, they're recruited all out of state. In fact, one of my challenges right now is we're showing a negative 7,000 students leaving the state more than coming in. You remember the Hope Scholarship came and kind of revitalized that. We got a lot of stop the brain drain, got a lot of people coming to the state that way. Now, I don't understand why. We're doing a deep dive forensically into why that's the case, but negative 7,000 students going out of the state with 26 public institutions here and a lot of good privates and our other systems. I can't understand why students would feel the need to go out of state. Obviously, online and time of delivery when they want it. It's the streaming environment. We call it the streaming environment now. You know, it's have it your way when you want it. I don't want to go to class this time. I just want to sit back and see what's going on later on and in that period of time. You all know about general inflation and then obviously our state workforce needs and going forward. Here's an important slide again that kind of shows the funding situation as it's eroded. Back almost in 2000, we had about 14,500 per FTE a student. In $23, you can see that it's a little over less than 10,000 now. So the value we think you're getting for the output of our university system is sound and solid. And but that's an important chart that shows you kind of goes along with the revenue there and the declines of the Great Recession here. And we would love to see us kind of move back up into the category here as we go up in here. The one thing I didn't talk to the budgeteers, but these are dollars when you cut in here and you cut in here through the 10% cut and you go just to formula increases, you don't get those dollars back. And they accumulate to a pretty significant amount over, I think, about $1.3 billion. So that's, you don't recover those in that way, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. This was another interesting fact here. This was the formula basis on which we pay our faculty, and you can see in 2010 had not been changed since 2010 until last year with the COLA here in 23. And this is not necessarily what we're having to pay and recruit and retain teachers, but again, it eats into that operational budget in that way. So from 2010, you can look even from 07 back, you can see there was not a lot of change there, you know, going forward. So that's another consideration as we go forward. We know about inflation. We know about the maintenance of our homes. We know about supply chain. We know about craftsmen and tradesmen and what it costs to do things right now. You know about utility bills and what's happened on your own utility bills. This is what we're experiencing in our USG facilities. Our M&O calculations, Tracy has some good numbers on that. Looks like it's costing about over $12, $12.30. This was generated because of HERF dollars that were spent maybe on deferred maintenance and other things like that. That's the federal money. We would probably say it's in this $12.55 category here. This is the earnings down here at a little over $7. So you're looking at about a $5 differential there that matters when you got this many square feet. We mentioned to the governor, although it was not included in his budget, a $1 increase in that M&O rate would generate about $44 million for educational opportunities within the state as well. So here's kind of a summary of going from 20 to out to 24, the cumulative effect here. And what it shows is some of the growth that we had. Like in 20, we had 17 campuses growing. Now we're only going to have 6 campuses growing in enrollment. So we got 6 growing, 20 not growing. And what that means is you went from these kind of growth figures back in 20, 73, 85, 64, 107. So this year, the growth is 7,568,000. What that means is we were able to mitigate some of the, kind of in a Robin Hood kind of way, we get some of the winners, we were able to give them, 70% of their growth, and then mitigate the losers down to maybe 30% of their loss in that way. We don't have the capacity to do that any longer with this growth formula here in the budget that's $7.5 million this year. We just don't have any flexibility to go from one to the other. So I'm going to show you the campus needs here in a second, and you'll see how that's going to impact that. And this is where we are here. In the FY24 formula, 6 winners, 6 gainers, and 20 with declining enrollment in this area. This is what's happening in campuses. You can see some of the numbers that are fairly significant, even from one of our research institutions, Georgia State, primarily from Perimeter. But you can see these other smaller institutions are going to have a tough time here. They don't have big budgets to start with, and eating these kind of losses is going to be meaningful to them. Now, I told you I came from a time where I delivered 5 out of 8 budgets that had less money to the General Assembly than the year before. We know how to do more with less, and that's what we're doing. I don't think this is necessarily all bad initially, because it makes us prune the dead wood and to get more efficient, give you a better return on investment. But you need to know you can do more with less for a while, but then you do less with less. And that's really the message here as you look forward to what's going on from a formula perspective. This is not going to get better for a couple of years because of just enrollment declines, and you're going to have bigger challenges next year. There may not even be $7 million next year to spread around and to reward anyone else in that regard. So you're going to hear from these campuses. You can look at them. This chart's going to be available. Many times campuses feel like you're taking that from me, and it's a matter of just their earning loss based on the formula is what it is. But you all need to know that when you go to the grocery store or the post office and you see people in your community saying, why did y'all cut my college that way? Then you'll have the answer about student decline, how that works with the funding formula in that way. So I want you all to be armed in that regard. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, thank you all for allowing me to talk about that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. If somebody has a burning question, we have a minute. Well, remember, we have 3 more presenters and 30 more minutes. So I see number 19. Representative Bentley.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chancellor, for your great presentation this afternoon. And I'm very concerned about everything you said, and I was just wondering with the losses and the that you stated, and I was just thinking as you were talking about power bills. Does any of these schools get any type of discounts or anything from these power companies?
No, they're doing everything they can from a conservation perspective. Mm-hmm. Some of these bills, Representative, are 20 to 30% more. I mean, we know that in our own homes. Mm-hmm. We see what our utility bills are. Campus-wide, they're doing LED lights and other things of conservation measures, but there's a diminishing return on those as well at some point. So just food for their we're trying to keep the affordability. I didn't mention the fact that there have been no tuition increases in 5 of the last 7 years.
Very
so
good.
That's y'all need to know that is that at one time we kind of let the colleges go wild with fees and everything else. That's not the case any longer. Is that we're holding them strictly to affordability issues because that's important. Lower debt coming out in that regard.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chancellor, thank you for your presentation. Going to that last slide, in terms of the change in enrollment, how much of that do you think is attributable to students potentially moving to the TCSG system as opposed to USG? Is there some sort of...
I think the Commissioner Dozier will say they have similar issues and challenges that way. We think the workforce has been the chief competitor. Obviously, kids coming out of high school, being able to go work for $20, $25 an hour, and saying, why should I pay you to go to school if I can make more money than I've ever had before? We think that's the primary competitor in that regard. But it's just, again, demographically. There are less high school students coming out now just because of the demographic waves that we see here. And there will be for the next few years. So it's a challenge that's going to be with us that we got to be very efficient about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Mr. Chancellor, thank you, and I think you're right, and we are on a time frame today, but I think we're going to hear from the Chancellor, we're going to hear from TCSG, and then Georgia Office of Student Achievement is going to fall right into where those students are and what the longitudinal study is. But, Mr. Chancellor, I want to thank you, and I asked you a friendly question in preparation. I'm going to do it without a question. I'm just going to make a statement today. The Chancellor and the team and the 26 university presidents have done a tremendous job in dealing with the reductions, because the university system is not exactly elastic. It's if 100 less people come on campus, they still have to heat the building. We're going to find that at TSG. You have done a tremendous job with some consternation around some degree programs, but where the degrees are they're still going to be offered in the university system, but they may not be at every school they are. In other words, you're right-sized in our university to deploy the capital, the treasure that the Georgia taxpayers entrust us with, and we entrust you with. And I for one, appreciate it. You've been a great addition. I appreciate your predecessor, Chancellor Wrigley, did a great job too, but we really appreciate what you're doing. And I know you've got things to do and places to be today, and could have gone there and sent somebody else in your stead. And we appreciate that you think as much as you do for our students and our institutions to be here and be before our committee. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be really careful as I close and leave. We're not whining. Y'all are owed the facts. I just feel like it's our job to present you the facts. You're the policymakers, the appropriators, and but you need to know where we're facing that way. We're going to make do with what we got. I'll commit to you that. We always have and we will, but y'all need to know what the situation is. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And I know, and I saw him come in. I don't see him now, but Chairman Knight. Oh, there he is, right here. Yeah, I know you're working with him on the appropriation side. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
We're going to go then. I'm going to go if my other presenter's okay. I'm going to go to Commissioner Dozier, to Technical College System. So we'll get with those out of the way, and then we'll go to the Governor's Office or the Office of Student Achievement. While he's warming up, I do want to recognize new representative from the 24th District, our secretary, Representative Carter Barrett, came in. You came in, I think, at or about the time we were adopting the rules. We added a 14th rule about tardiness to you and the chairman. No, I'm just so we're keeping a lighthearted discussion. But welcome and thank you for being with us, Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you for this opportunity. I have similar to the Chancellor, I have a similar presentation that we presented to the joint, a few new slides. Mr. Chairman, I'll go fairly quickly since I know you're on time constraints. I won't hit every one of them. Hopefully I have a chance for any questions. But please ask me anything as we go through. The biggest thing is I want to make sure that this committee and everyone knows the vision and focus of your technical college system. I couldn't be more proud of our 22 colleges, 22 presidents and faculty across this state. We have a very clear mission statement. It's to build a well-educated, globally competitive workforce for this state. I even think our vision dives even deeper into it. When you look at that vision, we are focused on enhancing the economic well-being of every citizen in this state by making them ready for the jobs that are available across this state. And we believe so much in it, we have a guarantee. If our graduate gets out and doesn't have the skill to do the job, they can come back free of charge and be retrained. That's the true belief. That's been around for a long time. That's not something new in the last few years, but that's the belief in what we provide and how we actually deliver. Our wildly important goals at the top, it's not only good enough to provide great education and make sure those that come out have that education and skill, but we want to close that skills gap, and that means numbers are important. And so obviously as we talk, we'll be talking about numbers. Very quickly, this was not in the joint appropriation. Thought it was important for this committee to see the map and where our colleges are. We have 22 colleges with 88 campuses. Many of you have heard, or maybe you haven't heard, it'll come up if you have not. Several years ago, it might have been in the prior presenter's time frame as governor with that little dip, but we did some efficiencies across the system, and we merged a lot of colleges that were standing alone. That creates some dynamics that still today you may or may not hear about, but that's how you ended up with 22 colleges with 88 campuses. Years ago, you may hear we were a standalone college, and that's what they're referring to. The goal, obviously, was years ago we set that we hoped in this state we would have a place of training within 30 miles of anybody that lived across the state. That lays out a little bit of that map as you see where the institutions are. We do it in several areas. I'm going to skip this one and go to the pie chart that you saw in a minute. But we have several buckets of how we make sure we hit the workforce. But I think what's important is knowing who we're training today. Today, just kind of repeating it, our average student's 25 years old. We have an average time in the workforce of 7 years. 44% are first-generation college students. I think that is so important. When we talk about changing the opportunities of our communities, that means changing those in our communities. And the fact that 44% are first-time students, that's showing that those opportunities are hitting across this state. You can see the makeup of our students. You can see females are outweighing the males, 63 to 36. You can see that 75% of our students are part-time, meaning most of our students are actually working while they're coming to college. When you look at this, I'll mention again and again, very, very proud of the work this past summer that our colleges did on having enrollment growth plans. How do we do that? Colleges had that freedom to really look at their communities, look at their opportunities, and make maps that made the most sense. I'll use one example. Albany looked at zip codes. They said, these are the zip codes we really want to get into and try to change this area. We had others that looked and said, we don't know why we're not touching the male population in this area. How do we go in and bring the males in? Because we got females coming. We had other areas that looked at the globalness of it and really mapped those little intricate details into the actual jobs that were there. And all of them really do that. They know that local industry, and that's the magic of our college. But the neat thing, you see the light blue at the bottom of this, and that's the ROI. You know, one thing we all want to do, especially in government, and my time here in government is focused on what are we giving our taxpayers back for the dollars we're spending. We're giving back somebody who comes to your technical colleges, 75% of them are graduating within that 2-year period. 99% of them are being placed. And 89.4% of them are not just being placed, but they're working in the field of study that they got their certificate, degree, and diploma. Meaning somebody comes in and learns how to weld, somebody comes in and learns to be an LPN, they are actually working in those areas. And that's the return we're really trying to make sure we see in our communities. This is just a little taste of the success. I hope and challenge all of you to please get connected at your local colleges on the goal process, the Rick Perkins process, the Adult Education Instructor of the Year, and our Eagle Winner of the Year. What that is every year we identify an Adult Learner of the Year. That's Miss Rochelle White on the far right of this. I shared with the Joint Appropriations Committee for 16 years she was a CNA. Didn't think that she had the ability to do anything but CNA. And through her kids pressing her and seeing them and wanting something better for them, she came back and got her high school equivalency and is moving toward an LPN and advancing her career. That's going to not only change her, but it's changing her kids, her community, and her family. You look on the far left, that is our Technical Ed Student of the Year, Mr. Ryan Degner. Mr. Ryan Degner served in our military. He talks about, I shared in the thing, and I find it funny, and I hope you find it amusing, but there's so much truth to it. He found a love for welding when I was in the military. He learned how to do some spot welding, enjoyed it, got out and had lost his purpose according to his story. Came out and really just didn't know how he fit. He was working every day, but coming home, as most of us do, cry on our wife's shoulders some days. And he came home from work one day, and his wife handed him the papers that he had been enrolled in Wiregrass Technical College to become a welder. And he has found his pathway. The two in the middle are our instructors. We couldn't do it without them, and that is so, so important. When you look at who we serve, last year we served 335,000 students. This is important because we focus so much, and we need to because this is where we're appropriated. We focus so much on just really one of these areas in this pie chart, and that's the far right area, the technical ed, that 131 that you see. That's where our formula is focused. But we serve people across a spectrum of other areas. And we have struggled the last couple of years. When you look, the question of has USG lost folks to TCSG? I imagine we've gotten some, but when you look at the overall numbers, we're down as well. So when you look, 2 years ago, we were down 10%, a little over 10% in credit hours, not head count, because sometimes we get confused. This chart's head count. So as you're looking at this is head count. This year, the formula is based on a 3.5% decline in credit hours 2 years ago. So the 2 years during the pandemic, we lost 10% on that credit enrollment, and then we lost 3.5% in credit hours. Now, the story's not as clear as that. When you look at this, and that's why I presented this to the joint and to you, you look at the 131 in head count and the technical ed side, that 3.5% credit enrollment decline represented a decline in just over 1.5% in head count. But when you looked at the rest of our training, and I don't have the numbers in front of me or I could give it specifically, Quick Start was up 20-something%, which makes sense. All the industries we've been announcing, all the specialized training as they've come in, TCSG arm of Quick Start has been doing workforce development at a higher level while our credit side has been down. Our adult learner took a big hit. When the pandemic hit, that was one of the online areas that really took a big hit. I believe, and I can't tell you for sure if my memory served me right, I believe that's a 25% growth, that 34,000. Workforce development, that's our federal money. One thing that you'll learn is we carry the federal WIOA monies, which is Title I monies. That goes to your 19 local workforce boards to administer training. And so when you look at that, Georgia's unemployment rate has been great, so our federal dollars in that WIOA area has gone down. And as you look at that, we've been blessed that 19,212 people that have been served is pretty flat. So we've done more with less money in those federal dollars coming down to your 19 workforce development boards across this state. The last area I really want to focus on, and that's the indicator that we're making the turn. We call it economic development. A better word is probably customized training. So a company comes to our technical college, says, we want you to come in and train X. We want you to train the programming for the PLC for the manufacturing plant. We want you to come in and teach forklift training. The skill set that's young workers are coming in, or workers that need to be reskilled that have changed jobs during this pandemic, industry has been coming and paying for that training. And that's where you see it in this economic development. We were up around 16%, if memory serves me right, in this 97,000. But this fall area that I'll focus on is actually up 300% right now when you look at fall over fall. So next year, I would suspect, if we continue the rate we're going, next year when I'm standing before you, this 97,000 is going to be a much greater number. Now, the rest of this presentation is going to be really focused on the technical ed. Like I said, that's where the formula is. That's what we talk about. One of the questions I always get is, are we focusing on the high demand career fields? This is not in a PowerPoint, but last night when I was preparing, we had gone over some numbers in the office late last night, and I just want to repeat these to you. For academic year 23, that's what these numbers are, 78.6% of all students took at least one occupational course or a high demand course. 66.9% of our credit hours that were awarded were in occupational courses. 58%, I'm on the dual enrollment slide, 58% of dual enrollment students took at least one occupational course. 47% of all dual enrollment credit hours was in the area of occupational learning. If you look at our traditional student, 86% of our traditional students took an occupational course. And 71% of all coursework, credit hours for our traditional student was in occupational. Those are some numbers I'm proud of. I hope you're proud of. What that means is when somebody comes in, you'll see in a minute, we produce more two-year degrees, the associate degrees this past year than we have, over 8,000. And I got speeded up, you're right. But most of their work is in that area we're looking for, which is that high demand credits. I'm not going to go through all this, Mr. Chairman. We're running out of time. As I just saw, I want to hit one thing. Military is important. I didn't share this with the joint committee. We're extremely proud of one item on here. Your TCSG is the only system across this nation that the entire system is a Purple Heart system. What that means is every one of your colleges across this state has an area where we served our armed service students. We relate to them, give them counseling, give them guidance, connect them to the local veterans services. And inside your TCSG, at 2 of them right now, we'll have 3 pretty soon, we have a Vector Center. The first one was funded by this body several years ago down in Central. The second was funded just a couple of years ago by this body up at Chattahoochee Tech in Marietta. And we're trying to fund one internally down in Columbus right now. And that's somewhere we can provide training, get them back into Georgia having a skill and a job, but also they get their benefits while they're in that building. It's a great partnership with Trish Ross and the team over there. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to skip. These are your numbers in front of you. 34,000 graduates last year, 59,000 awards, 8,200 associates. Bigger thing is on that left side, 44,000 technical certificates, meaning they left with a skill to go to work. These are your top 10 programs. You can look at these after I'm finished. You can look, when you get to these slides, I mentioned in the joint, it's important that you see this. This is what's going to come next year when we're before you. This is this current fall over last fall. Next year when we're here looking at the formula, we'll be looking at this year for 2 years forward budget. Just like the Chancellor said, our budget's based on 2 years lag. And so this year's 24 budget's based on 22 numbers. This is 23 numbers. So in 25, we're showing an overall 2% growth right now, which is a positive thing. A lot of that's in dual enrollment. But when you dig into the high demand areas that you're getting hit on, nursing, CDL, aviation, you can see in these numbers 10% growth, 24% growth, 7% growth, manufacturing 3% growth, cyber 9%, law enforcement 33%. I'm not going to go through the rest of this, but we have registered apprenticeships, really rolling that. Our industry partners are strong. And our budget, as we went over, we have 2 main areas as you look at that budget. The supplemental is really a budget focused on our EV, as funding the 2 training facilities connected to the Rivian project and to the Hyundai project. In our big budget, we really just have one item other than the pay raise, and that's a reduction based on our formula, based on that 3.5% hit in credit hours. It amounts to $8.9 million reduction. To build on the Chancellor, I could lay over and give you ditto on about all of those slides. Our formula was based in 2000. It was based on 75-25. We're a little under 40% state funded when you look at a student right now. You look at what we get for utilities and that thing, I'd beg you for the Chancellor's budget. I'm just kidding. He mentioned $7 per square foot. We're at $3.79 a square foot. But when you look at those stats, it's very similar as far as the formula goes and how we're formula funded. Mr. Chairman, I'll end there and answer any questions, or I will yield the well and move on.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We have one question, and we're going to run out of time, and but I'm going to go to the Vice Chairman of the committee, Representative Scoggins. Did you have something you wanted to? No, okay. He pushed his. Well, I have no further question, but we are rushing, and That's David. I'm sorry. All right, well, I'll go to, well, let me say this, and then I'll go to Chairman Knight, is we're rushing through this today because we're trying to accommodate a committee after, so I'm not spending more time saying that. We're probably, we are going to have to meet more than once a week for some of this. Some of you, I was fortunate enough to get to speak with Commissioner Dozier and somebody from the university system over in Athens and made some remarks about this. We've talked about a number of these things for a while. The governor's done some things. There's some things we need to do in the next 4 weeks. We're not going to get it done meeting for an hour or two once a week. We only got 12, 14 committee days left, so I know y'all got other places to be. We're going to try to give you a heads up on when it is, but I'm going to need you to do this. We got 26 people in this committee. It's going to cost some money. Money's a hard thing. Chairman Knight's going to be in charge of that committee to do that. But we've got to be 26 advocates spreading the good word to 180 House members. Chairman Knight. 22.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. And more of a statement along the lines of sort of what you're laying out, and not necessarily a question, but we're looking at some of these issues. And Commissioner, you and I have talked. I know you and the Chairman have talked also. I want to start seeing numbers, and we've talked anecdotally. We're looking at things like formulas. It's great for all that, the awards, the credits, the certificates, but I want to see some historical trends and data. And I think that's what we all want to see. My fear is that while the duck is on top of the water swimming real pretty, it's paddling real hard up underwater trying to stay afloat. And, we want to help the technical college system in Georgia. We're putting a lot of expectations on the technical college system, not only for in total workforce, not only we break out things in regards to Quick Start, which sort of its own bucket, okay? Mm-hmm. But we look across our state and we're looking at high demand areas, but we're looking at those skilled labor areas. And inherently, those programs cost a whole lot more than the dual enrollment general education type programs. And I think it's time that we look back, and I'm not putting words in Chairman's trying to put words in your mouth, but I think we're all on the same road that we need to examine this, because we can't expect you to produce the workforce, not only in regards to new industries, but when we go back to our respective communities, and they're needing plumbers, welders, electricians, we're talking about the industrial robotics and things. Yep. I'm not sure that the technical college system has the proper resources that it needs to continue to deliver the world-class education we expect of you. So with that, I'm going to end it, Chairman, but I wanted to make that statement. It's time to look up under the hood.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on. I know the Chairman, Representative Burnell's got a question. Representative, I'm going to will you get with the Chairman? We only have like 7 more minutes, and we have one more presenter I got to get to, if you would yield to that. So I'm going to thank you for doing that, and we're going to go to the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, and we're going to see how much you can achieve. We're going to get, we'll go over a little bit. We're going to see how much you can achieve in a short period of time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Could you bring up we do have a PowerPoint slide. We're not going to go through that. We're going to send that around to you all. This was just an overview of GOSA, the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. I will just say for background, this office was created by the Chancellor, former Governor Perdue, in 2002, and the legislature approved it in statute in 2003. It has evolved over time, but what I'm going to focus on today is our mission and also what we were able to do with our Race to the Top funds in the 2007 to 9 timeframe. $60 million was provided to Georgia to complete our longitudinal data system. And that was originally for education. Later, we added labor. So talking about workforce, you can only imagine how busy we've been in the last 2 years. So what we're able to do is take a student's information from let's say, a pathway completer, all the way into the career, and see where that student goes, whether they go finish high school, whether they go to post-secondary, where they go, what they majored in, and then what they went into for their career. So with that, this is just real quickly, our purpose statement is actually, we provide data, information, and initiatives to improve student outcomes. And that's been our mission all along. These are the programs and functions that we currently work on. And again, we're going to focus just on the Georgia Awards, which is the longitudinal data system. Okay, so Georgia Awards has been around since around 2009 when we completed it. And with me today is Jackie Lundberg, who is our COO. She was actually with the agency when the build was going on. So she was there from the inception. It has evolved, it has become more robust. It has become a national model, one to be replicated and to be mimicked. And so we're very proud of that. We were one of the first to complete it. And you can see all of the agencies and the different organizations that provide data. So when I say that we have Georgia Awards, we host it. It's everyone else's data. We manage and host it, and you all fund it. And so appreciation for the additional funds over the last couple of years just for the management and operations. With that, I'm going to introduce Jackie Lundberg and her team.
And I was actually going to show, I'm Jackie Lundberg.
You may
thank
need to
you.
pull that down a little bit, Ms. Malone.
Okay.
There you go.
And I was actually going to show our report card that is the Georgia's education report card. We have pre-K, K-12, USG, TCSG, and Georgia Military College. But it's on our website, and I don't want to take up too much time because I know the chairman had a specific dashboard that he wanted to look at. So I've got Michael Moore and David Evans that are on the Georgia Awards team, and they're going to show what having all of these data are able to produce as far as dashboard.
Hi, I'm Michael Moore, and hopefully I'm going to be able to pull up our dashboards. Here we go. So I'm going to pull up our high school grad outcomes dashboard for you, and just briefly let you see what we've been able to do with data that's longitudinal. So this dashboard will give you, by graduation, high school graduation year, a picture of where the students end up and some information about their post-secondary, their post-graduation activities and where they ended up from a post-secondary standpoint and labor. So for each year, you are able to see the top colleges that they went to, both in-state and out-of-state. And of course, this lovely pie chart that gives you information about whether they were public, technical, public, for the university system, technical college system, out-of-state work, or if they were in the workforce, and if they were in a pathway or certificate program. So it won't take too much time to dive into anything.
I want to emphasize something the gentleman said, and tell you, we're getting a 30,000-foot view of this, and that's my fault or for yielding the committee room an hour early. But I want to schedule with you all a deeper dive, and I'm going to ask each of the members, maybe we can find a room for you where you can plug this in over at the Capitol. This is some really good information for our areas to see what our high schools are doing and where these traditional students are going and not going, because we're losing people in the workforce in 2 or 3 areas, but one of them is first generation learners don't realize they have an opportunity, and this shows where we're the ones that we're losing.
Okay.
In which I think yellow color I think is.
Yellow is workforce. I do want to point out that the unknown category that's mentioned there can be related to that we're waiting on some Department of Labor data
Right.
for 22. So that will reduce that unknown a little bit as well and increase the work, the yellow that you see. As the other, there are other charts that are displayed down below. Once you, if you choose the earlier year, you can actually see. Can't get the mouse to move. Sorry. You actually have some other charts that are down below. You can see some 5-year information. If you go far enough back, you can see 8-year, and you can see the different categories that the students, or percentages that show where the students ended up based on that enrollment year. I don't want to take too much time, but there's also downloadable data on this dashboard where you can download this in a comma-separated format, and then you can do some of your own analysis on that. I'll turn it over to David now. David's my colleague and a good man who's going to demonstrate one of our other dashboards.
Sure.
And, I want to thank y'all for letting us be here.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go over very quickly our Georgia Higher Learning and Earnings dashboard. This dashboard here, what it's going to show you is after a student has attained a college degree, their earnings 1, 5, and 10 years post-graduation, so they get a sense of that return on investment that we hear so much talk about. I'm not going to go drill down too much. You can filter by degree type, program of study, and college. So we'll go ahead and look at a bachelor's here. Once it loads. Yeah. Actually, I'm just going to reopen the dashboard itself. Let's see if we can get it to cooperate this time. There we go. So at the top, you'll notice you're presented with this nice little summary here that just breaks down the same things you're going to see graphically here. So we're looking at earnings for a bachelor's degree. In that first graph on the left, 1 year after graduation, the middle graph being 5 years after graduation, and earnings 10 years after graduation. And so rather than just presenting one static point for students to look at, we do give you a range of values. That red column is going to be your 25th percentile, your 50th percentile, which is right there in the middle, and 75th percentile. So you get a range of, or an idea of what your earnings are going to be 1, 5, and 10 years after your graduation from college. You can filter by program of study. So we can look at computer and information sciences there. You can also break it down by individual college. We also have a comparison tool where you can compare separate majors, and in the interest of time, I won't go over that today, but you can stack up majors against each other. You can look at, well, if I've got a bachelor's in computer science, how much more do my earnings increase if I go to a master's? That all is available on the comparison tool side of things, but again, in the interest of time, I won't break that out today, but again, thank you for allowing us to present.
So, Mr. Chair and committee members, we would love to have a demonstration at another time because there's so much good information, dashboards, and downloadable data that I think, you know, in your leisure time during session, you might want to just play around with it because, I mean, it's enlightening. And as you know, just going through these and looking at scenarios a couple of years back, today, what, you know, post-secondary enrollment, all of that is right there. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkinson, and my apologies to you guys. I've now just been informed that, and we've lost members because we've said we're winding up at 3, that they've moved the meeting that was coming in at 2 to another room. So we're from the government, and we're here to help. But again, this was just the chair had asked for the room at 2 o'clock, and we let some people go. I'm going to thank you, and again, apologize for this. Ask if President Riley, if we could hold you over since we have lost some members along those lines. We're also going to have a presentation from the private colleges at our next meeting, and we will entertain 2 bills at our next meeting. Neither have been first read yet. There will be no action. One of them that will be to tune up House Bill 1435, some that we did last year for the course completion. Well, let me finish thanking people, and then I'll get to that. I'm all over the place since I'm scattered with 2 o'clock. Thank everyone for doing this. I want to suggest on this note that we'll get out of our office the URL. I mean, it was actually in the documents, but we'll send that electronically so you can just click it if you have it on your phone. It is really interesting to get in there with it. You can actually see what your school systems are doing well, what they're not doing not so well, quite frankly, and what we need to get better at, so we can all work together toward that. And then I would like to suggest that we set up sort of an ad hoc, maybe we'll, a lunch or something, we can get the room up by the higher ed office, and it gets people to sign up if they want to just kind of do a demo, not a committee meeting, but to do that a little bit more accurately. So thank you, you, Commissioner Dozier, those from the university system for the presentations. Apologies to Chairman or President Riley, former representative, former commissioner, President now Riley of the student finance and your staff for coming and being prepared. And then as I wind us up here, we will have those two presentations next Wednesday. We'll have a bit of a department bill that we'll discuss briefly next Wednesday, and then we need to tune up HB 1435 language. That was the completion grants. In the process of saying you need to be 80% complete, most of the planning is done a year in advance. For a 2-year program, one cannot, if you're halfway through, you're on track, but you're only 50%. So we found people that might need to be eligible for that. So we're going to ask the committee to talk about what those percentages may be. And it's actually a great time, President Riley, for you to talk about the take up of that amount thus far, and then what we might be able to do along the lines that Chairman Knight mentioned with some high demand fields. So with that, again, Chair's apologies. We're trying to make everyone happy, and we appear to make everyone uncomfortable. I know I am. So I thank you all for being here. But I am excited about what we can do this year. I am more excited with this. So if there's no further information for the committee, I'll let everyone go, and thank you for your attendance. And we'll stand adjourned without objection. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.